Welcome to the Head Shepherd podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ferguson, CEO here at NextGen Agri International, where we help livestock managers get the best out of their stock. Before we get started, thank you to our two fantastic sponsors for continuing to sponsor this podcast. MSD Animal Health is perhaps better known as Cooper's Animal Health in Australia and for their Allflex range across the world, with a comprehensive suite of animal health and management products. Honiger is a one-stop shop for wool harvesting and animal fibre removal. The Honiger team have a deep understanding of livestock agriculture, backed by Swiss engineering and a family business dedicated to manufacturing the best. We are grateful to our sponsors for their support, helping us bring Head Shepherd to you each week. And now it's time to get on with this week's episode. Welcome back to Head Shepherd. Great to have you listening along. We've finally got myself and Sophie back in the studio together today. Before we get into Sophie introducing our article and telling us what she's been up to at AABG, just quickly wanted to mention the feet work is still ongoing in Australia. We're about to talk to Sharon Paterson on the podcast with this episode, and we talk a lot about feet in there. And it's, just wanted to remind people that we still have opportunities to get involved in the feet health project for merino breeders in Australia. So get in touch with Amy if you want to know more about that project. But there's the round challenge is coming up. We can do the on-farm work as well, which involves us coming out and scoring your animals on site and looking for genetic variation in those feet. Yeah, Sophie, before we get into Sharon, what have you been up to? Or talk us through your article and talk us through a couple of days at AABG.
Yeah, so we've just spent the last week in Queenstown for the AABG, which is a conference basically discussing livestock genetics, which couldn't be any more perfect for members of the NextGen Agri team. And it was just a wonderful 4 days talking about the science that's going on across Australia, New Zealand and the world really, about breeding better livestock that, be it sort of health traits, growth traits. There was some really interesting research, and it's given me, something to learn and broaden my horizons. But it was just a wonderful, wonderful 4 days, and makes you really excited to see where the industry's going and the advancements and how quickly we're making those advances. I feel like we're kind of in the industrial age of agriculture where everything's just going so fast. It's sometimes hard to keep up, but it was really cool just to be in a room of 200-300 people that are all really passionate about, what we do here at NextGen Agri. And it's pretty cool.
Excellent. And you've written an article on 10 years of Kiwi land.
Yeah. So in next month, I will be celebrating 10 years in New Zealand. I initially told myself 2 years and then I was going to head back to the UK. But for those Kiwis, I was driving out of Auckland, and it was the Bombay Hills that I fell in love with. Little did I know what was around the corner and what I was going to see. But I decided then and there, about 7 days into my trip, that I was never leaving. And 10 years later, here I am, and I've learned so much off of the people that I've worked for. I've been really privileged to work on multiple different farms, sort of bouncing around here and there. And I did kind of aim to try and work for some of the good ones, so I'd learned some good lessons. And in fact, one of the most pivotal people in that sort of adventure is Sharon and the Patersons, who we're talking to today, which is quite a coincidence. But so I just did an article summing up what I've learned, 10 lessons in 10 years, be it from the people or the business skills that they do or just the country as a whole. It was really nice to write it and just reflect back on 10 years really.
Awesome. So as usual, you can find links to that on the Harbin website. So jump on there and have a read, or we'll be bouncing around socials as well. So it's actually out already, so you can get on there and have a look. So we'll get on with this week's show. Sharon Paterson was great chat. She very, very busy down there in farming, but I guess has a real passion for Texel sheep, which you're about to hear about. She also runs a garden and tours of that and does a heap of other things, and obviously works on the farm as well. Pretty cool chat with Sharon. I'm sure we're going to enjoy that. We'll get underway with that now. Welcome, Sharon Paterson, to Head Shepherd.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Right, Sharon, we've had Ross on before, but we thought we better get where he learned everything from on to have a yarn as well. So, good to continue the Waikaka story today. I guess maybe your background from a Hereford breeding background right the way through. So maybe your background before Waikaka.
So I started actually with milking shorthorns before Herefords. Okay,
yeah, right.
So that was a way back in the day. And yes, I do have a Hereford background, and I have farmed all my life. When Ross first came home, I decided to take some time off farm. So I've also worked 16 years off farm. So I worked for FMG as a rural manager, and I also run Southern Field Days. But at the end of the day, it's the love of livestock. I've decided to come back and all the way along, I had some black and coloured sheep, which I really, really like my black and coloured sheep because I like a bit of fibre stuff. But in about the late 90s, early 2000, Laurie said to me, your black and coloured sheep aren't making any money. You got to get something that makes some money. Don't you hate that? So I said, righty-ho, we got rid of the black and coloured sheep and I brought my first 6 in-lamb Texel ewes, and that's where my Texel or our Texel started from, to mating 220 this year, which I've got probably 40 too many, but we've culled pretty heavy. So Ross is going to have to cull his sheep to allow me some more room.
I'm sure that's how it'll go.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, just I guess maybe remind us where you are in the world for those who, so down
So
south
we're
of Southland.
We're at Waikaka, which is 20 minutes north of Gore. The really good thing about being here is that we go from hills rolling down to flats. So the top paddock, I think about 450 metres above sea level up there. And we're farming about 2,000 acres with the Herefords and Romneys and Texels and, about 4,000 ewes. Ferg, about that, and 200 cows.
Excellent. So, I guess bull sale season just been over. What have you learned this bull sale season?
I've learned that I'm going to stick with my shit. I'm just going to stick with my sheep, Ferg, okay, and leave the cattle to everybody else. We all do it. We'll sort of do our own little bits and pieces on the farm, and having a younger generation like Ross home, I do have to step back from certain areas. So that is what I've done with the cattle side of it. I've stepped back and basically I stay in my little window of Texels, and although I'm stepping up and doing fences for him at the moment as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, right. Excellent. Yeah, well, let's talk Texels then. So the first inland ones from Peter Black, I think I read somewhere. And so, obviously, well-known Texel breeder, but you've evolved the sheep since those early days, no doubt.
We have, in the early days, we went out and we brought a ram, a Blackdale ram called 447. I think he was an 03 at the time, and we topped New Zealand paying for him at the time, and he bred particularly well. He also did extremely well on the CPT trials that they were running back then. And even when he had been dead for about 5 or 6 years and he'd lived a very good long life, the semen, they'd still were using him. He was still one of the top performing rams right across the board. We're also lucky enough to, it cost us $14,500 by the time we'd left the Christchurch sale. We'd sold 2 shares in him and we're down to costing us $7,000. So that was probably a pretty good buy at the time. We exported semen in him to Uruguay, and the guy paid us half the money and the rest of it hadn't come, so we had to go and collect that. That was a wee bit different, but we did go to Uruguay and we did collect the money. So he did very, very well for us, and we've brought several rams on and off over the years. We have all the time. We too have topped New Zealand with prices as well. We've used some of Sam Holland's, some of Andrew Lang's when he had his, Shipley's. We've used their rams as well. But this probably a bit more now. We've gone back into believing in ourselves and what we're breeding, and finding that our rams are breeding just as well for others as for us. So recently we brought some ewes at Waipara at Keith Berry's dispersal, and 6 brilliant ewes, and they're all by a sire that we'd previously sold him, which was probably a bit gutted. I probably shouldn't have sold the sire, but you can't keep everything, can you? So the sire was at the sale, and he was 6 or 7 years old then, and he was still structurally sound. And that's what we're aiming for, you see. So we brought, 6 back, and all bar one have had twins every year, because that's another thing we're on is the twins as well. So we recently brought a ewe and a ram lamb and a ewe hogget from Wharatoa Genetics, and because they had their dispersal. And we went out there and said, okay, got to have a GDF9 gene, and they've got to be MyMax Gold, and they've got to be structurally sound. That's where we're at. And one passed. One came through the other day that Will assessed, and I got it right. So, that was one bonus. But they're quite expensive. And I see my ewe has scanned triplets, and they'd all have a GDF9 gene in them. So,
Cool. Good. So maybe we'll start with why Texels, and then we'll get into your specific sort of objective, I suppose, around the animals. But yeah, I guess what was it about Texels that sort of keeps you getting out there and breeding them?
They are an amazing sheep. When you can, all our singles go off to the works at average 83 to 85 days and normally hang up around last year was 19.8 kilos, 21 kilos at 83 to 85 days, and they've had nothing done to them. They're vaccinated. We don't tail. They just go through them and get scabby vexed or whatever Ross does, and then off they go. And that is the easiest, simplest money we can make here on the farm. That sounds really, really, really corny, but they have a personality. Okay, that sounds really corny. They have a personality. They can grow meat like no other breed. I don't believe they like no other breed. The other thing is your scanning may not be the greatest, but the survivability is amazing. Okay, so I may scan 175 or whatever, but heck, I'll tail out at 160, early 160s. It's just the survivability. I did suck it up a wee bit this year, and I put a Suffolk over my last season over my hoggets, and that was not that great, but there wasn't a good spring either. So to be fair, it wasn't a good spring, but we're doing it again this year, and we're going to leave them up on the hill with Ross's hoggets and just see how it goes. And if it doesn't, I was just finding 3 and 4 days the lambs would fall over, and I don't normally have that, you see. So I like the meat, I like the carcass, and the survivability. They live forever. And if you make a friend of them, we've got one ram here. This is really bad, Ferg. We've got one ram here, and he's born in 2020. Okay, now he goes out every year in the commercial flock. He was born during a snowstorm and ended up in the on the feeder here, and he's a really good ram, really structurally sound, really good ram. But because he was in here, he thinks he's our best mate. And even when you're drafting, he goes and stands. If there's a dog around, he'll stand beside your leg. But every year he goes back out. He goes out with Ross's commercials, does the thing, and comes back in again. So, yeah, they're pretty amazing sheep, yeah.
Yeah, no, cool. So, yeah, I guess let's talk about when you're selecting your ram, selecting your ewes, what are the sort of traits that you're honing in on these days?
Right. So first and foremost, let's go for my ewe hoggets, for example, which, as you know, William's just been done. Structures first. We know because we've cut the heads off all the singles, we know we've got twins and triplets. Okay. You don't have that issue where the great big one comes through and go, oh, look at that. We'll keep that because it's a good one. In actual fact, it's too late because they're gone. Okay. So they all come in as twins and triplets round about January, and we quickly go through them. We don't take too much out then because and I know with SIL, you need to keep your numbers going, don't you? So we go through them then and take out anything we don't really like straight out structurally, turn feet, anything like that, anything. And the other thing is we've often got Telford students with us, and we say, if you can give us a reason why you don't like that sheep, then it's out. Okay, and maybe I just don't like the look of it. It may be its ears aren't thick enough or whatever, but it's out because we've got numbers to play with now. When I had 6 sheep, I didn't have numbers to play with. Now I've got numbers to play with. And when we did our assessment on the feet, well, take a back step. Because we were asked to for ram sales, we've been doing the blood testing for the foot scoring, right? And we'd only do the ones that we need to for sale. And I didn't really see the benefit of it. And so this is why I got you guys in and we did our foot scoring, what we did with the hoggets. And because of what we've previously been doing, we actually had no 4s and 5s because 1 being the best and 5 being the worst. We actually had no 4s and 5s. And we thought, what are we going to do? We'll see what we've got and then go from there. So we come out with 13 of our 70, 80 something we did had a 3 somewhere in one of the foot scoring scores or the back score or wherever it was. So we thought, okay, we've got to draw a line in the sand. Will's done this And I could see, well, when he was doing it and he was giving something a 3 and he'd look at me and I'm going, no, we're going to be right up front with this. Well, we're going to get this right, okay? It's not a place for favourites. If they're not structurally sound and we're going to do this and move our flock forward to where I want it to be, we have to take what's happening. So, yes, we did. Everything with a 3 went. And it was no matter what, whether it was the top line or the twisted, the pastons or whatever, it went. And I've got to say, it was probably one of my prouder days when I put that mob of hoggets back in the paddock and I was able to walk behind them because they're all rounded across the top. It somehow also picked up, by picking up your cow hocks and all the rest of it, you got rid of all the narrow sheep, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, and even when they're in a mob together, they looked fantastic. They were rounded across the top and looked really, really good. So we've had a discussion, Ross and I, because I'm not going to be doing this forever, to be fair. When my current heading dog says no more lambing, that's it for me, okay? So he's only 3.5. He's only 3.5. Okay, Ferg, he's only 3.5. So so I've got to keep Ross in the loop. So he said, we've decided we're going to do the ewe hoggets. The ones we've done this year, we'll do again next year, again to see if there's been any change after having a lamb and things like that as well. And then we'll keep doing the hoggets and the two-tooths
Cool.
with the aim of having a very structural sound ewe flock. But I was mated a ram this year and he was born in 2019. So we've been going for longevity anyway. And if they weren't structurally sound, they wouldn't have lasted, would they?
No, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that would be pretty cool. I mean, I don't think we've got any flocks anywhere where we've been able to cull the 3s. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's great.
just so people are listening. So it's on our next gen foot scoring system. And so, 3 is actually not really a cull, but it's obviously on the way to being a cull. So, but at Paterson's it obviously is. So that'll be awesome. It'll be amazing to walk behind that group of sheep because their feet would be stunning.
They were just also wider at the back. Do you know what I mean? They just, and we know that having to have lambs when they're lambing and stuff, you need that width for the lambs to come out and things like that. And I also have this philosophy: if a ew's got a sore foot, then odds on she'll breed something that has a sore foot. Okay, so we tend to, where possible, if we get rid of the ewe, you actually stop that line carrying on through. And it makes your sheep last longer. The longevity thing, where too many people are just putting ewe hoggets over ram hoggets and all the rest of it, we need longevity. They are your paying sheep that live for a long time.
So obviously reproduction's a big focus with GDF9 and obviously only keeping twins and triplets. So how long has that policy been in place where every single is, so if they're born single, they're off to the works as a works lamb, basically. They're not kept in the stone, is that the?
It's been on the sheep front for a long time. A lot of geneticists will tell us we're wrong, okay, and I've been told I've been wrong by a lot of Texel breeders as well, that you should not actually cull your singles because there's actually just as much, there's quite a bit of fertility in them and all the rest of it. But yeah, I would say 20 years we've probably been on that. Yeah, but I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but it feels right for us, if you know what I mean.
Well, you got yeah. I mean, you got the number. It's lowly heritable, but it is heritable, and there's variation there. And so you'll be capitalising on like those singles might be just as fertile, but on average the twins are slightly better. So it makes sense. And if you do it for long enough, like I mean, really that's what New Zealand, like the big lift, other than the importation of other genes, but the big lift was just culling singles. Really, it wasn't selecting for twins. So it does work. Like it's not. Yeah.
It definitely helps you if you're going to look to buy a ram, to go through the ram catalogue. It definitely speeds it up. Because you just get all the singles and they're gone. And then you get me on feet in any shape or form, and that's gone. And then I'm going, right, what's next? So EMA's got to be over 20, because I find that whilst we've been pushing for EMA for a long time, it is quite feed related when it's done and how they've been fed over the summer. I mean, you can feed the living daylights out of them and you can end up with huge, big EMAs at the end of the day. But it is feed related, because we've been we've used nothing under probably 22. So why are ours not out at 35? Do you know what I mean? So I'm not too sure where the heritability is on that one.
It's it's moderate, I think 25 to 30%. So it should shift, but I think it's probably some of the other correlations at play that make it maybe a bit harder to increase because we're doing other stuff that's selecting. Maybe you're not selecting for it, but
yeah. The other thing that I do worry a little bit with the EMA one is the lack of meat in the hind quarter. And I think sometimes if you push the EMA too high, we lose that meat in the hind quarter, which is really still quite important to us. Yeah, and we do look at that.
Something I've been sort of zeroing in a little bit on through bull sale season as well, and I reckon you see a bit of that in cattle as well. And it's interesting, isn't it? I feel like we need some sort of objective score around that hind quarter because it's certainly, obviously we were going for EMA really to try and get whole body muscling, but it certainly doesn't always flow through to the hind quarter, that's for sure.
No, in places sometimes you actually lose it. So I'm with you. We do need some sort of objective scoring, whether you guys can bring it into your thing or not. I don't know.
Doing some. Yeah, we used to do butt shape. We should probably bring it back and think about that.
The other thing I got told many years ago is, and it was in the cattle world, you don't get paid from the ground to the belly. Okay, so the great big long legs. I mean, you don't get paid for that bit in the middle. So it's really quite important. Yeah, all
that air underneath is not worth a lot of money. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. No, doesn't. It looks good from the top, but not so great underneath. That's another thing that after Will did this assessment, they were pretty much like peas in a pod, and I really thought it might have hit harder on one of my sires that I'm just a wee bit on at the moment. But it was because we actually looked, we sidelined them after we did them to see who was doing what, and it was one here and one there, and there's no real indicator. If perhaps I went back another generation, I might have, but we just went for sires at the time. Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you've been so fastidious on structure for lots of years, you would have burnt out most of the bad variation.
And this is where I've kind of got with one sire, which I'm a wee bit, but that's right.
Yeah.
We live and learn, don't we? It does make it very hard buying a Texel ram to get Will did these, and I wasn't far off to get my level of structure I'm aiming for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it makes the higher the goalposts are or whatever. Like, it gets harder and harder as you really crank up, and it's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously buying size of any description is the hardest job of any stud breeder. Really, trying to find that size that's going to do all the things without bringing any fault in is not very easy. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. The other thing we're also pushing is our, I'm not a great sill advocate. I do like my BVs, okay? So we like a good weaning weight BV, but I like a good live weight 8 BV. So especially in the Texels, because they need to be off down here by sort of April. And if you use a straight Texel ram over your ewes, that's where you get your best hybrid vigour, using the straight, not a crossbred. Yeah. And my big thing is that I like, if I'm buying in, I'm round about an 8 in my live weight 8 at least. And any sire I use, I'm round not normally much less than 7.58 and creeping up a bit more. However, still did drop their base recently, didn't they? It dropped down a bit slightly again. But, I like a good live weight 8 because you really need to get them off before that winter. And if we can do that and bring that advantage to whoever uses a Texel ram, it's got to be a bonus.
Yeah, 100%. Talk to me about lambing ease and what you've done around the sort of shoulder structure and what you look for in animals that get lucky enough to stay. What does that shoulder got to look like to? I mean, obviously you can in any terminal you can breed some problems, but it's really important that we have lambing ease. Is I guess what's your strategy?
Well, my theory is, like your foot scoring again, if you have those front feet and they slightly roll, that opens the shoulder one way, or slightly roll, they close the shoulder the other way, okay? So basically, if we can get that structurally right, then it should set the sheep up all the way through, whether it's in the rear end or through the shoulders. I've never been a great one to look at shoulder and say, oh, it's this, that's the next thing. I've always been the one that looked at the feet, then rolled my hands to see what your shoulders do, in or out.
Yeah.
And that's basically how it affects your sheep. So if you get this foot scoring stuff that we've just been doing right, then, and you get the width again, it's the width behind again. If you get that right, then it should be relatively easy. I lamb mine on a hill. There's hills everywhere around here, right? So I have to lamb on a hill, and I'm getting older. Come on, Ferg, I'm getting older. There's no, and I can't catch a lot anymore. So it's pretty, and Texels are reasonably quite quiet sheep anyway, and they're behind the wire at the moment. So currently I've got 200 ewes behind the wire. They will, once they've lambed, they will, and we tail and all the rest. And when weaning does, they all go out with the thousands of others and do their thing and the world out there. But they're behind a hot wire. They are quite quiet. Very rarely do I actually have to catch one to lamb. Some I do, and I'll be realistic. If you're a woman and you've had a kid, you know they don't all come out the same way, do they? So
that's right.
You give them a bit of time, and if it doesn't happen, then odds on there's something wrong, okay? Otherwise, they do it themselves around here. I have, as I said, my dog, the day he gives up, the day I do, he stands behind me. Odds on the Texels want to kill him, so they come at me and I just pick them up with the front leg. But very rarely do I have to, and that's the thing that I've tried to stay away from, is actually doing too much. Ross is lucky, he DNAs his, okay, so he doesn't have to tag. I put the tags in. I also mark them for how close they come when I'm tagging them.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they get too far away, then they get downgraded, and I actually will cull them for if they bugger off or do something stupid. But they need to be good mothers, and that's a good thing about Texels are they like their lambs. If you try to mother a lamb onto one that's had a dead lamb, you get about a 50, 60% chance. So, as I said, very rare do I actually have to. I don't have big heads and things like that. Very rarely do I have to do too much like that. And that's another thing we've been doing less and less of, because as 16 years of that, I was actually working off farm. So it was my holidays when I was doing my lambing, and so I'm doing less and less, and it's just because, again, structurally sound sheep with the legs in the right places, the front legs in the right places, the shoulders will be right too, and the shoulders will be turned the right way. So if you haven't got your feet right, your shoulders aren't right.
Yeah, cool. Interesting. Talk to me about GDF9, how long you've sort of been introducing that, or has it always been in there? And, what's your plan? You go all GDF9, or is it something you're just playing with? Or?
It's something I'd like to really increase. We fell on our feet with that one. One of those 6 ewes back in 2000 must have had the gene, and we didn't realise until it came up in the Romney Texels. Okay, so that's when we first figured, oopsie, we think we might have that. So we thought, and because we've been pushing for twins, if we had it, it would have stayed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we've been pushing that along.
Yeah.
So then we thought, well, if we're going to, if we're going to play with something else, let's go for it and give that a whirl. So as I said, the ewe and the ram lamb that I just brought, he's got it, and so's the ewe lamb got it. And I brought another ram last year that had it as well. So we'll monitor it. It will not, structure will always be our number one focus, okay? Yeah. So even if you've got GDF9 and you're not structurally sound, you won't stay. Okay, so that's just what it comes down to. So, we will push it along, and my aim with my structurally sound assessed ewes going forward, they'll have as many as possible with GDF9 as well.
Yeah, cool. With you, being so fastidious on feet, obviously, I don't know, for those who don't know, Waikaka is not a very dry part of the world. It's they'll be walking around in mud and grass, and I don't think their feet would be dry many days of the year, certainly not for a good 9 or 10 months anyway. Have you seen things change in terms of their susceptibility to scald and things? Has that sort of disappeared over time, or is that
it has.
As you've gone for structure? Yeah.
When we were first in Texels, I can remember Laurie was trimming all their feet before ram sale time, I'm thinking, this is a bit ridiculous. He's getting a bit old. He's getting a bit old and he's getting a bit big. And he'll tell you stories about even when the Romneys were here, when his grandfather was around, when his father was around, they'd actually designate days and they'd actually trim all the ram's feet, okay? And then they'd do the ewes as well. So everything was done. So now my big thing was, instead of doing the test through Lincoln and doing the bloods and stuff, and it cost you $20 or whatever it was, best thing was to save your time on doing the test and take that money and actually, if anything's lame, go and cut the head off. So you're on winning both ways, you see. So you send them off to the works. But my big thing is that if the toes can't get apart and let the air in, then they will get foot schooled. So, and you'll see the same rams if they come through at selling time that have got sore feet and da-da-da. And they're usually the ones that the toes are too close together and they can't get the air. So even when they're sitting down, they really need to be sitting down with that bit of air flow. Do you know what I mean? And you're right about down here. It is a bit damp. To have those toes that actually open up, get the air in, and it just reduces the problem. It really does. So it's all down to structure. I always say the 5 points that meet the ground, if they're not right, forget it. And that's the 4 feet and the teeth and the nose or the mouth, whatever you like to. And if they're right, you're pretty much going somewhere. It's an old one.
I was racking my brain for the 5th point, but then their mouth makes sense.
Come on, Ferg, don't tell me I've taught you something today.
Yeah, definitely. When you're, is that a fine line between like opening up that foot without sort of pushing it out too far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've both actually got to be straight down, really.
Yeah.
With that. So when they do walk, it actually opens that wee bit more. You know what I mean? I mean, you get the odd one on the break at the moment that it has a build-up sometimes. You know, they build up of mud and stuff and then it'll freeze and get. But you leave it alone, they'll walk it out and it'll get on with it. Yeah. They're too big for me. I mean, odds on my ewes are averaging 75, 80 Ks at the moment, and I just can't do anything with them. So you either suck it up or you're out. Yeah. Sorry.
No, but all good. That's been really interesting. Maybe just quickly, you're obviously in your spare time, you're a pretty avid gardener and got the big garden down there. Just tell us a little bit about that. That's obviously a labour of love.
Avid gardener. I tell the people that come to the garden that I'm a gardener by default, not by choice.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we did our succession planning, which we all have to do with an oncoming generations, both daughter-in-laws said, we're not doing the garden because it was started by my mother-in-law, you see, and it was 5 acres, thereabouts, and there's some pretty amazing trees that she actually, that have grown here and been registered and cultivated through Blue Mountain Nurseries. So both girls said, we're not doing the garden, and I said, oh, God, it looks like the short straw's mine. So I had just finished work anyway, and I thought, righty-ho, and it's a bit like the sheep. If you're going to do something, you got to do it, and you got to give it your all, or you don't. Okay, so the garden, Laurie's mother had dementia for something like 10 plus years, and we'd been able to keep her here. But the garden had got very, very overgrown, and it's required huge amounts of work. I've got a girlfriend that helps me, thank God, because Laurie's not allowed in the garden. And her and I don't know how many trailer loads we've carted out of here. We've got a car trailer behind a motorbike, and we've just carted tons and tons out. And we've added things like we've got a summer house now. We've got a archway out there, which I've just had another wedding booking this week as well. So we're doing a little bit of that. We pick up tour groups we're about halfway between Te Anau and Dunedin. So we're on with a tour company, and we get, we probably, at the moment, probably picking up 15 odd of those a season, and included in that they get to see a sheep being shorn, a dog worked. If we've got lambs in the shed, they get to see them, feed a sheep because there's always the kids' pets around or something like that, so they come on through as well. So, we grew the garden slightly because I wanted to put my own mark on it. If you're going to do it, you got to put your own mark on a bit. So we have gone up to 6. I took the corner off Laurie's calving paddock because it had a wet spot down the bottom. Okay,
It didn't need that, obviously.
Yeah, it was best for him. It was best in his best interest. So we're now up to 6 acres. Okay, so it's pretty green all year round because it's full of conifers, and we're probably touching on this because I'm quite rare conifers that you don't find in other parts of New Zealand as well. I've actually got which is unusual, I've got a protea, a South African protea flowering at the moment. And it's
I saw that on the Facebook or somewhere.
Yeah, it's unusual because it doesn't like frost. So it's out by the summer house. The summer house has got a couple of rocking chairs, which Laurie went out and fixed the fence when we put the summer house in, and he thought he'd rejoin the fence up for me because he's doing his good deed, and he parked up in one of the rocking chairs and thought, oh my God, I can't stay here. The sun was beaming in and he would have been asleep. But yes, it is a stunning garden, and it was definitely well worth maintaining and keeping. So I've learned a lot. Gardening and trees, genetics-wise, is not a lot different from my Milcombe Shorthorns, Herefords, or Texels. Do you know what I mean? It's all genetics. And they do DNA. They do DNA plants, and they can do all that stuff on plants as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, obviously they do, but you don't think about it that much. But
no. So,
awesome.
So that's pretty much that. We have a shop in the garden as well, and I do felting, and I do needle felting, wet felting, and all that sort of stuff, and make a lot of stuff for the shop as well, but it's all local stuff. So, yeah, we have that in the garden as well. We have an elf hunt. If you've got kids, Fergs, bring them down for a bunny hunt or an elf hunt, and we have up to 120 kids running through the garden, and you can't even see where they've been afterwards because the garden's so extensive.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Yeah, no, it's a great combination. And obviously, you run felting workshops as well as felting, do you? Is that what I saw on
I do.
Facebook?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So
did one the other day.
Obviously asleep at some point, but not very much.
Well, I'm normally awake when Laurie's asleep in the chair because you know how often he's not home.
Excellent. No, that's been fantastic, Sharon. Thanks very much for your time. It's great to have you on and hear all about the Texels and everything else going on down there.
It'll be great to see how we going forward with this, Ferg, because we're going, something Ross really wants to push in as well, and which is really he hasn't been pushing a lot of these things along, but this is something he's passionate about, and it was him that made the suggestion we do them as two-tooths as well.
Cool. Did you do the Romneys as well? Did they get foot score the other day? Oh, you wouldn't? No,
just me. I'm just me.
Right. Yeah.
I just wanted to see where we're at, and the good thing about bringing Will in to do it is that if we've got one out of a certain year, and I think, oh no, I quite like that sheep data, we should keep. We took that out of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he doesn't know who they buy, or what they buy, or whatever.
No,
so he graded them, and if we're going to pay to grade them, then we stick by that. Do you know what I mean? And that's one way I'm pretty sure we'll take that step forward faster.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about if we get called all sorts of names, our staff workers are out there because you're just looking at the feet, you don't look up, nothing else matters on that day, you're just scoring what you see. And
that's why I like Will, because Will's pretty straight up.
Not going to, even if you did tell him it was your favourite, he'd still cull it. But,
well, when it came to my Wharataua one that I'd spent $1,000 on my ewe lamb, he looked at me and I think she's got a 2 somewhere. I think she's definitely not full ones, but she had a 2 somewhere. Yeah.
Right.
And he looked at me and I said, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Awesome. Thanks, Sharon. We'll let you get back to putting those fences up. But thanks very much for having you on.
Good to talk to you. Catch you later. See ya.
Thanks again to Heineken, who are proud world leaders in the manufacturing and supply of professional sheep shearing and clipping equipment. Thank you to MNSD Animal Health and Norflex Livestock Intelligence. They offer an extensive livestock product portfolio focused on animal health management, all backed up by exceptional service. We thank both of these companies for their ongoing support of the Head Shepherd podcast.